Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. Rayburn Waitley sat and watched his wife Jolene make a scene on the dance floor of a public hall. Everyone was looking at her. For 6 years, he had been afraid of the possibility that this night might come. Of course, he asked for a lot. Jolene was a beautiful, energetic woman. For 6 years, their social life was limited to the things they could do together or with their 2 boys. There were no parties, no social gatherings, no socializing with friends or acquaintances. To be honest, he had very few friends to talk to. Rayburn Waitley had several reasons for insisting on this strange arrangement. Firstly, he was extremely jealous, and Jolene attracted guys to her. She was different from the domestic girls in many ways. She knew how to take care of herself and dress in the latest fashion. She was educated and sophisticated, but at the same time cheerful and frisky. She was also a great flirt. That's where the problem arose. Why would a jealous man marry a woman who liked to tease and flirt with every man he met? Rayburn kept his wife on a short leash. Their son Brian had just turned 5, and Tyson was almost 4. Taking care of them and the household was practically a full-time job. Rayburn tried to ease the situation by getting everyone out of the house as often as he could. He constantly brought home gifts for his wife, trinkets, flowers, and sweets. One day he read in a magazine that doing such things would make a woman happy. That was all he wanted. Today's dance was a corporate event. Rayburn worked for a small family-owned construction company. He worked hard and kept to himself so that there would be no problems. Yes, there are problems. This was the second reason why he so persistently refused to attend social events. He was born and raised in Rockingham County, Virginia. It was in the far western part of the state, and if you had walked another kilometer, you would have ended up in West Virginia. He had 3 brothers and a sister, and he missed them very much. His older brother, Thompson, was currently in custody. His sister Nadine and 2 younger brothers, Grayson and Fletcher, still lived in the area. He hasn't seen any of them in over 6 years, since he was forced to leave, which brings us back to the second reason. Thompson was in prison for beating a man so badly that he spent 2 months in the hospital. Rayburn lived and worked 2 states away from home for the same reason. Thompson and Rayburn both had short tempers and fought like berserkers when they were furious. When the first blow was struck, none of them remembered themselves after that, nor anything that could be called mercy. The only way to stop them is to physically restrict them. It was the same with Nadine, but she seemed to control it a little better. The 2 younger brothers were pretty ordinary people. Everyone teased them because they had a different father, which their mother disapproved of. Rayburn's mother lived with Nadine, who was married to a truck driver. He didn't come home very often, and most people understood why. Authorities in both Virginia and West Virginia were waiting for Rayburn to return home so they could capture him. It didn't really matter which one of them was lucky. Anyway, he would have ended up like Thompson. Rayburn sat quietly in the back of the room, watching his wife. Jolene danced and joked with all the men, married and single. She was a flirt and enjoyed every minute of her free time. It's been too long. She missed parties, dancing, and having fun. She was glad Rayburn had brought her with him, but upset that he hadn't done it more often. She was on edge, catching up. It was a good evening for Jolene. As the evening went on, the atmosphere became more relaxed. Rayburn watched as the guys began to show some initiative towards his wife. They seemed to be testing the limits they could go to with her. She kept them in check most of the time and was still good-natured about it. Most of the time. Benny Cordetti was one of the co-owners of Bright Bill Enterprises. He was a loud, arrogant bore whom Rayburn disliked but tolerated because he was the boss. It was important to earn a living and also to keep a low profile. As the evening drew to a close, Benny began to show a little more ingenuity and enterprise in the movements of his hands. It was a slow dance, and Benny had both hands wrapped around Jolene's ass. She didn't protest and just kept dancing as if nothing was happening. Rayburn was clutching the empty long-necked bottle with all his might, but it didn't want to break. When Rayburn jumped up, he threw the bottle across the room right at his boss. Fortunately, it hit Cordetti's shoulder, not Jolene's. The force was enough to make the big man fall to one knee and start swearing. Jolene turned around just in time to see her husband grab her partner and start dragging him across the room. He took a position to start hitting the jerk who dared to grope his wife, but never did it. 3 guys grabbed Rayburn and pulled the 2 men apart. "What the hell are you doing, you idiot?" Cordetti shouted, getting up from the floor. "Touch my wife again, you fat bastard, and I'll rip your head off." "We were just dancing. She danced all evening. A lot of guys danced with her. Yes, but none of them touched her ass when they did it. I had no problem letting people dance with her, but I'm not going to let it go beyond that. You've crossed the line. You're crazy, Rayburn. You're crazy and you're drunk. And to top it all off, you're fired. Come back tomorrow and get your last check. Throw this bum out." Jolene just stood there with her mouth open. She had never seen her husband like this. She had no idea how it all started. Until that moment, she had imagined him to be a caring, loving husband. She'd noticed that he got a little upset when she flirted, but never anything like that. Not once in 6 years. Rayburn looked at his wife for some kind of support, but did not see her when he was escorted out. 10 minutes later, he was home. He paid the babysitter and plopped down on the couch. He wasn't drunk. He knew that wasn't the case and distributed the drinks for the night. He was sitting in a dark living room. The only light came from the kitchen. He realized that someone had given his wife a ride home when he heard the car door slam. He didn't bother to look at who it was. Was it Benny? "Well, thank you for making this evening unforgettable. I've never been humiliated like this. Thank you so much, Rayburn." She threw her cape on a chair and noticed that she had not received a reply from her husband. "Did you hear me? Are you asleep? Or are you so damn drunk that you can't think straight?" "I'm fine, and I see that you got home safely. Not because of you." Rayburn didn't want to argue with her. He was sitting here because he didn't want to be in bed when she got home, unless, of course, she came back. "By the way, I gave you your job back. Come back tomorrow as usual." "What the hell did you do? Did you make love to him so that he would give me my job back?" As soon as the words left his lips, he regretted what he had said, but it was too late. "No, damn it." Jolene was furious when she slammed the bedroom door. Her words hurt him more than anything else in his entire life. He could tell she was furious, but she had no idea about the demon she had unleashed. Rayburn spent the night sleeping in his truck. After breakfast, Rayburn waited in the parking lot of the company for the opening of the payroll office. The waiting was bad because it gave him time to think. He replayed the events of the previous evening over and over in his head. He always stopped when it came to Jolene's confession or whatever it was. No, damn it. He watched as Benny Cordetti pulled up in his black Cadillac. Damn it, no one rides them anymore. Finally, when he felt that everything should be fine, he entered. The accounting girl seemed hesitant to write him a check, but eventually she did. Before leaving, he signed several dismissal forms regarding medical nonsense and tax information. Rayburn breathed a sigh of relief when he left, but it was not there. "Hi, Rayburn. What the hell is going on?" Benny looked even bigger and plumper in daylight. "Didn't the old lady tell you?" "It's all right. I didn't fire you." Rayburn waited for him to approach him. Several workers stopped their work and stared in their direction. "I'm sorry about all these misunderstandings, Rayburn. I'm sure everything will be fine from now on. We're all looking forward to you and your wife coming to our parties more often." Benny Cordetti looked at Rayburn Waitley with a big grin on his face, and that was a mistake. Benny was 30 centimeters taller than Rayburn and heavier than him by at least 25 kilograms. None of this mattered. The big man stayed on his feet longer than Rayburn expected. Finally, Rayburn felt, or rather heard, several ribs crack. This caused Benny to get down on one knee. The steel-toed boot quickly broke the kneecap that was in front, knocking him to the ground. The next target was Benny's exposed genitals, and when he rolled onto his back for protection, Rayburn was immediately on his chest. Most of the punches from that point on hit Benny in the face. The one that missed broke his collarbone. A sudden pain in his right arm forced Rayburn to act with his left. Cordetti's face was a bloody mess by the time several workers dragged Rayburn away from the battered body. 2 of them ended up on the ground, and then they all let him go as he headed for his truck. A few people helped Cordetti, but most of them watched Rayburn with awe. None of them had ever witnessed such a sight. Brian and Tyson were playing in the yard when he returned home. Rayburn opened the door and whistled. In the blink of an eye, both boys were in the truck. Rayburn watched in the rearview mirror as Jolene stood on the back porch, screaming and waving her arms. Cool shit. An hour later, they were driving south on Interstate 81. The boys couldn't wait to have lunch at Mickey D's, but they started asking about their mother. Rayburn tried to change the subject by telling them how good they were going to have a good time at Aunt Nadine's. Rayburn stopped by to see Nadine, who sent him straight to Fletcher. He had just got married and rented a house that was twice as big as he needed to make his new bride happy. She had a 4-year-old son from a previous marriage, so everything should have turned out well. Fletcher and Grayson were at work in Arlington. They usually left on Monday morning and returned on Friday evening. The situation was not the best, but it was a good stable job. Nadine and Fletcher's wife, Garnet, spent most of the evening with Rayburn. Nadine had a lot of free time, so she was going to go to Pennsylvania and pick up all the clothes and toys for the boys. Rayburn laughed when she volunteered so quickly. If anyone could handle Jolene, it was Nadine. She was mean, callous, and nasty as hell. Rayburn had never been able to figure out how she had managed to persuade a man to marry her. He decided that she must have scared him, or else he had a wooden leg and couldn't escape. She wasn't amused when he mentioned it. Nadine insisted that Roger married her because of her looks and pleasant personality. Then she always laughed at her own joke. She left at first light and arrived at his house for lunch. "Who the hell are you?" Jolene was still not dressed. It was obvious that she was crying. "I hate to say it, but in this case it's true. I'm your worst nightmare." "Oh shit. What now? I can't take it anymore." Nadine watched as Jolene slowly entered the living room and collapsed onto the couch. "I'm Nadine, Rayburn's older sister. I promise not to hurt you, but I won't put up with any nonsense. Do you understand?" "No, I don't understand. You're in my house, and you're not my boss. As long as you're in my house, I'll do and say whatever the hell I like. I don't care if you like it or not." Suddenly, Nadine understood why Rayburn had married this woman. She looked like a Barbie doll, but she had balls. What she couldn't figure out was how she and Rayburn hadn't beaten each other to death in the last 6 years. If any woman had spoken to Rayburn like that, he would have hit her, woman or not. Apparently, Rayburn never adjusted his attitude towards this woman. "Jolene, do you have anything we can eat for lunch? I still haven't had breakfast today." "Yes. Let's go to the kitchen. I can make something quick. Would you like some coffee?" "I'd prefer a Coke, if you have one." Neither of the women said a word for several minutes. Nadine sat down, and Jolene served and sat down again. "Where the hell is my husband?" "Why do you care?" "He is my husband, and he has my children." "Where are my children?" "With your husband. They are safe and having a good time." "Where the hell is it?" "This is my home. Stop playing cute word games with me." "They're at home in Rockingham County." "Why?" "Because if he had stayed, he probably would have killed you." "Why the hell did he want to kill me?" "Because you cheated on him. No man from Whately would tolerate that." "Damn, I can't figure out why you're here right now." "Oh shit. I knew I'd screwed up the minute I said that. Dumb, dumb, dumb. Do you want to explain it? Do you want another Coke?" "No, but I'm going to have coffee now." Jolene pours 2 cups of coffee. Nadine waved away the cream. "When I got home from that damn party, I told Rayburn that his boss had relented and that he still had a job. When Rayburn made some witty remark about me making love to his boss so he could keep his job, I hit the ceiling. I was furious. The fact that he could even think of such a thing was beyond me. I did the only thing that came to my mind. I gave him a witty answer. That's what got me in trouble." "What the hell did you say?" "I said that I had pleased his boss so that he would give him his job back, and that I slept with his boss because I wanted to." Nadine took a sip of hot coffee. "Wow. I'm amazed he didn't kill you right there. You must be a real blonde, because that was the stupidest thing any woman has ever said to Rayburn Whately. Really stupid." Jolene didn't answer. "What happened? Why was Rayburn fired in the first place?" "I've been acting like a college student at a frat party all night. I could tell Rayburn was upset with me, but I was having so much fun that I didn't want to stop. I was dancing the last dance with Rayburn's boss, Mr. Cordetti, when the situation finally got out of hand. Cordetti put both hands on my buttocks. I told him to take them off immediately, or I was going to kick him in the balls so hard he wouldn't be able to walk for a week. I didn't want to make a scene. Well, I'm late." Before we knew it, Rayburn threw a beer bottle at Cordetti, and hit him in the shoulder from behind. I think he was aiming at his head. Now it looks like my brother. One thing led to another, and in a fit of anger, Cordetti fired Rayburn on the spot. Rayburn ran out of the party before everything calmed down. I talked to Mr. Cordetti for about 10 minutes, and he admitted that it was a bad move on his part and that Rayburn was justified in what he did. He said he could still keep his job and apologize to me. He also told me to apologize to Rayburn for him. I didn't have the chance. So you've never had sex with this Cordetti guy? Hell, no. I would never have thought of cheating on Rayburn. Why did you say you did it? Because I was furious. He just accused me of being a cheater. I will not tolerate this shit from anyone, including him. Before I knew it, my mouth was spewing all this shit, and there was no way to take it back. The only person who was used that night was me. I did it to myself. Me and my big mouth. Jolene gathered up the empty cups. She seemed to be crying, or at least there were tears in her eyes. What are you going to do now? I don't know. Do you have any suggestions? You seem to know a lot more about Rayburn than I do. Did you know that he was wanted legally in 2 states? What? No, I didn't know that. What the hell did he do? Damn it, girl. That's a stupid question. What did he do to Benny Cordetti yesterday morning? Oh my God. No. Cordetti is not expected to be released from the hospital for at least 3 weeks. This is the Rayburn we all love and worship. The 2 women sat in silence for a few moments. He can't come back here, can he? No. Can't he stay there too? That's right. What the hell are we going to do? What do you mean, we? You're not one of Rayburn's favorite people right now. Oh shit. He doesn't know the truth. There's no way he can know what really happened. Damn, I screwed up again. Listen, Jolene, it was very interesting to meet you. I enjoyed the lunch and the conversation, but right now I have to pick up the kids' things and hit the road again. Can I come with you? Hell, no. Are you trying to kill me? Can I have your phone number? I can do it, but don't expect me to take sides. Rayburn is my brother. Blood comes first. We have some money in the bank that we saved to buy a house. Does Rayburn need money? I can get them for him. He's fine. He's with his family. He doesn't need anything. Keep that money. You might need it. 2 hours later, Nadine was on her way, heading south. She came home just in time for dinner. There was a big family gathering that evening. Nadine told Rayburn what Jolene had told her, but he didn't buy it. Until she could prove otherwise, he was going to assume that what she said first, in the heat of anger, was true. The story she told Nadine was a far-fetched cover. The big problem seemed to be what he was going to do next. He couldn't risk staying where he was, and he couldn't go back to Pennsylvania. Fletcher had a friend who owned a company that built log cabins in Winchester, Tennessee. A quick phone call, and one of the problems was solved. Garnet was going to keep Brian and Tyson at her place until Rayburn found a place to live. Garnet made a great porridge. Nadine was going to bring them here and help Rayburn set up the house, as well as find something like a babysitter for the boys while Rayburn was working. Rayburn hadn't planned to leave until Monday morning, so he had a full weekend to enjoy with his family. Although Rayburn tried his best to get home without anyone finding out, it didn't work. Someone recognized him, and it didn't take long for the rumors to spread. It doesn't seem to have reached the ears of the law, but it has attracted the interest of several other people. Rayburn Waitley has become a legend in the area. All those who wanted to be cool could quickly earn a reputation if they dealt with Rayburn. It was like a cheap western about young shooters challenging older, experienced ones. Only this time there were no 6 shooters. To make matters worse, Jolene Waitley was driving all day to find her husband and bring him to his senses. The longer she drove, the more crazy she became. By the time she got to Rockingham County, she was very angry. The Waitley family settled in with plenty of cold beer and 2 grills with ribs and burgers. The plan was to keep a low profile and enjoy the weekend. Everything was fine until the first phone call. Fletcher answered the phone. He was laughing when he hung up the phone and naturally attracted everyone's attention. Damn it, Fletch. What the hell is so funny about that? Nadine chimed in first. He chuckled a little before speaking. Danny from the Grist Mill Bar said that there was just an angry blonde who demanded to know where she could find Rayburn Waitley. It looks like she's going around all the bars trying to find her husband, and she's talking very loudly about it. He said it sounded like she was being obnoxious on purpose, just to tease you. Nadine, Is this like what my wife would do? Nadine couldn't help but laugh. Damn right. She'll make a fuss until she finds you. I think this woman is in love, Rayburn. I think she's crazy. You know perfectly well that the law will get wind of this, and then we'll have problems. The tone of the conversation at the table was ambiguous, but most found it funny. This continued until the next phone call. They all watched Fletcher until he finished, and then waited for him to tell them what was going on. Rayburn, do you remember a guy named R.B. Griffith from Page County? Yes. A tough guy who lived east of Luray. Well, my good brother, he's looking for you too. And it looks like your wife and R.B. Griffith are bound to be in the same place at the same time tonight. There was a moment of silence in the room. Rayburn finally got up and put his beer bottle on the table. You all have to excuse me for a few minutes while I go find my loving wife. Now Fletcher and Grayson didn't want to miss anything that was going to happen, but Rayburn motioned for them to sit down. However, he made it clear that he wanted Nadine to be with him. He saw Jolene's car in front of Wet Willie's bar. He parked in the back and he and Nadine went in the side door. It was a Saturday night at a country bar, but you could have heard a pin drop, except two people were talking in the middle of the dance floor. Jolene stood nose to nose with R.B. Griffith. Of course, he had to bend over a little to straighten out the position. R.G. Griffith was big as well as fat. Being overweight could be an advantage or a disadvantage, depending on how you look at it. Rayburn and Nadine slowly moved closer. Everyone was glued to the couple, waiting for something to happen. You lay a finger on my husband, you pathetic piece of shit, and I'll rip your balls off and feed them to my dog. Rayburn laughed to himself because they didn't even have a dog. I'll tell you, little lady, that after I'm done with the skinny little man you call husband, I'll come back and show you what a real man is. It was like two kids in a schoolyard. They continued this for more than a minute. It was obvious that Jolene wasn't the least bit afraid of this asshole, but sooner or later it had to end. Rayburn moved a little closer, and Nadine stayed next to him. R.B. Griffith leaned closer to Jolene and grinned, whispering something to her. A big mistake. Jolene hit him on the head, but hard enough to make him turn his head, close his eyes, and pinch the bridge of his nose. It wasn't strong enough to hurt him, but it was annoying and embarrassing. Before opening his eyes, he reached out and grabbed what he thought was Jolene's blouse. A second later, he realized he was holding Rayburn's shirt. The look of surprise on his face was immediately replaced by a satisfied grin. The second headbutt was much heavier than the first. R.B. Griffith was on one knee, and the first real blow had not yet been delivered. The grin disappeared and blood began to flow. Nadine pulled Jolene aside as Rayburn placed a steel-toed boot directly on R.B. Griffith's left kneecap and then began pounding. It was all over in less than a minute. Rayburn was unable to do much damage to R.B. Griffith's ribs or torso due to the large amount of fat, but there were many other areas that caught his attention. He only stopped beating his opponent when someone announced that the sheriff had just arrived. Rayburn left through the side door, while the officers entered through the front. The confusion in the room complicated the work of law enforcement officers, and it was not difficult for him to escape. Nadine took Jolene home with her, but she came all the way in vain. She had no idea what Rayburn's intentions were, but she didn't want to rush him. By the time they got home, Rayburn had packed up his things and was on his way to Tennessee. Jolene was furious. Nadine thought it was all so damn funny. It took Jolene a couple of weeks to realize that Rayburn wasn't coming back. A couple more weeks and she had a good idea where he was. One morning she just disappeared. Nadine called Rayburn and informed him that she was on her way and in a bad mood. Jolene dropped the boys off at Fletcher and Garnett's house when she was leaving. Rayburn and Grayson tried to keep a low profile while they lived in Winchester. They did not become hermits, but they softened the situation a little. Nadine showed up a couple of days after her call. No one knew anything about Jolene. While Rayburn and Grayson were working, Nadine visited all the local clubs and eateries to see if Jolene was nearby. It's been a few weeks since she left. I found her. Nadine seemed quite pleased with herself. Don't you want to let us in on this? Rayburn seemed more worried than pleased. She's staying at a trailer park near Belvedere with a biker named Osman. It seems that they have become very attached to each other. She's very open about the fact that she's here looking for you. She walks a lot, but their favorite place is a bar called the Monkey House. Osman works as a trainer at a gym in downtown Winchester. He considers himself a tough guy and a biker, although he is not affiliated with the club. It's nice to hear that, but what should I do now? Brother, you'll have to talk to her sometime. You might as well do it now. Grayson put 3 bottles of beer on the table. Rayburn, Grayson, and Nadine sat on the sidelines. The monkey house wasn't that big, but there were a lot of people there. They didn't try to hide, and they succeeded. Jolene showed up with a big guy who must have been Osman. He was big and solid. This guy didn't have a beer belly. She was all over him, which usually pissed Rayburn off. 10 minutes later, she finally noticed him, and her attention to Osman increased. Now that she knew he was here, she was doing it to piss him off. It worked. Jolene stopped at the bar and picked up 3 bottles of beer. Osman just stood at the other end of the room and watched her approach. Damn if it's not my husband and his loving family. It's amazing that I found you here. She placed a bottle of beer in front of each of them. What do you want, Jolene? Why do you insist on following me when you know I don't want you? Do you know what the hell I want? I'm your wife. I want us to be together again. You, me, and the kids. That's what I want. If that was true, then what the hell are you doing with that biker over there who wants to be like that? He's not the one you want to be with. He's a real man. I needed a place to stay while I was looking for you, and he had a spare room. I assume you also share a bed with him? Rayburn framed it as a question. It's none of your damn business. If you were doing your husband's job, it wouldn't be necessary. No one said anything for a few seconds. How are my children, Nadine? Is Garnet still taking care of them instead of me? There was still no answer. Eventually, she got angry and went back to her new friend. Everything was quiet for a while. They decided to finish their beer and leave. They saw everything they wanted to see. That's when everything turned to shit. As they got up from their chairs, Rayburn seemed to stumble. He was a little drunk, and it was difficult for him to walk or even stand. Nadine and Grayson didn't notice it. He was still mobile, but not as active as usual. They never made it to the door. Osman bumped into Rayburn as he was passing by, and the next thing they knew, he was beating him up. Nadine and Grayson were completely confused. This has never happened before. Rayburn didn't resist. Osman beat him until he fell down and then started kicking him. Finally, Nadine jumped into the fray to protect her brother. Nadine looked back and saw Jolene smiling. Jolene was actually laughing when she and Osman stormed out the door. Grayson insisted that the hospital conduct a full toxicology examination of his brother. There was no doubt that he had been drugged with illegal substances, and the police were immediately notified. The injuries were quite severe, and Rayburn spent 5 days in the hospital. The police never found Osman or Jolene. Rayburn and Nadine returned to West Virginia so he could recover. For some reason, local law enforcement agencies on both sides of the state line didn't bother him. Physical exercise has never been a part of Rayburn's life. The lack of body fat and a muscular body appeared to him naturally, thanks to hard work. Now everything has changed. Nadine quickly realized that therapy and exercise were necessary for Rayburn's recovery, and she made sure that he received both. Fortunately, there were no serious problems. After a few months, he returned to normal or even recovered. He was ready to return to Winchester when they got the call. Grayson, what's going on, brother? Just a little bit of news that I thought you might be interested in. It seems Osman and your wife left for Sturgis this morning. They're on his motorcycle, so I guess it'll take about 3 days. Were they in Winchester? No. After the problem at the monkey house, they moved to Chattanooga. That's why we couldn't find them. He was bragging to a few old friends here in town, and that's how I found out about their trip. What the hell was he bragging about? By beating. He claims he's the only guy who's ever been able to beat up Rayburn Watley. Well, it sucks. It's getting worse. He also claims to have taken your wife. Around this time, Nadine intervened. I'll have the truck refueled and ready in an hour. Rayburn, take the boys to Garnet's and come back here in 10 minutes. No more. We have a long trip ahead of us. It took them exactly 24 hours to cover 2,500 kilometers. Nadine was able to rent a room in Deadwood. It was close enough for what they needed to do. You just can't compete with a crowd of 500,000 people. Most of the first day was spent sleeping and recharging the body. They had no idea where to start looking and how to do it. Since most of the city was closed to all types of transport except motorcycles, they had to walk almost everywhere. Nadine thought it was a little funny, but it only made Rayburn angry. On the first day, they spent 10 hours searching, but without success. The second day didn't start any better. They decided to split up and keep in touch on mobile phones. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon when he found Osman. He and Jolene were having a lot of fun with a noisy group in the middle of a packed beer hall. He called Nadine and told her where he was. Rayburn watched his wife and her new man for about 10 minutes and then slowly made his way through the crowd. If he had tried to start something inside, it would have been quickly stopped. He had to get him outside where there might be a chance. He was 3 meters away from their table when Jolene saw him. Oh shit. All their table mates turned to look when she screamed. Rayburn wasn't that big or that scary looking, but he got everyone's attention. Osman knocked over his chair, trying to get up. He started pushing through the crowd, trying to get to the door. He had at least 10 meters to go. Jolene squatted down and tried to become invisible. It didn't work. Rayburn followed him, but took his time. Osman took one last look over his shoulder and then stormed out the door. He never heard the siren or the screeching brakes of the ambulance when it hit him. Ambulances and fire trucks were the only exceptions to the traffic rules. Nadine arrived just in time to see him being shot down. By this time, the real commotion had begun, and it didn't take long for Jolene to kneel down next to her escort. The ambulance staff were right to solve the problem, but she was still scanning the crowd for Rayburn. Then she noticed Nadine next to her. She was forced to make a choice, so in the confusion she slipped away through the crowd. Nadine followed her as she disappeared into the van lot. Osman was directly hit by an ambulance and ended up with 2 broken legs. Rayburn calmly watched as the ambulance crew loaded Osman into the back of the car along with another patient. He was amazed that they were able to put 2 stretchers in it at the same time. It's been a long road here, and he hasn't even had a single injection. 10 minutes later, Nadine returned. Did you lose her? No. Are you going to tell me what's going on? Not until I've had a cold beer. She kind of giggled when they entered the beer tent. Nadine wasn't the kind of girl who liked to giggle, so it seemed a little weird. Your wife was running around the parking lot trying to get someone to let her into one of the cars. Most of them were empty. She eventually found a couple of guys who must have agreed to let her hide in their van. I waved at one of them, and he came over with a smile on his face. However, this was not what he expected. My Spanish sucked, but in the end, I gave him $800 if he agreed to take Jolene with them when they left. Nadine finished half the beer in one gulp. Where were they going? I don't know. I didn't ask. But the logo on the side of the van said, Diablos de Juarez. They both kind of laughed about it. By the way, you owe me $800. When they returned, a large red cargo trailer was parked outside the motel. Nadine informed Roger of her whereabouts, but did not expect him to show up. Rayburn left Nadine and Roger in the room, and he found the steakhouse, Legends of Deadwood. Rayburn ordered a large ribeye, but couldn't finish it. His sister and her husband were still in the room when Rayburn returned, so he made himself comfortable in the pickup truck and tried to catch a couple of winks. He didn't seem too afraid of her. A knock on the truck window woke Rayburn from a light sleep. He thought he was done with Nadine and Roger, but he was wrong. It was a girl in her 20s, dressed like a real biker. I'm not interested in this. Go to the truck stop about half a kilometer down the road. I'm not a cheater, damn it. I just need to ask you a question. I think Rayburn pissed her off. What? I see you have Virginia plates on your truck. Are you going back there? Yes. I need a ride to Harrisonburg. Rayburn sighed and gasped a little, and then got out of the truck. He waved his hand in the direction of the motel dining room and walked away. She picked up her backpack and followed him. Would you like some coffee? He got a nod, but nothing more. When the waitress started to approach the table, she leaned over and whispered, Can I have another burger? Rayburn added a large plate of French fries to the order and then introduced himself. My name is Rayburn. What's your name? Wanda. Wanda Styles. How did you get here, Wanda? One of the guys I worked with convinced me that we would have a great time here at the rally. He may be having a great time, but I'm not. 2 days on the back of a tent may seem funny to some people, but not to me. He didn't even get a motel room. I refused to spend another night in a camping tent. Is that all? No. That bastard offered to share me with his new biker buddies. That's when I decided I needed to get out of here. Wanda ate the burger as if she hadn't eaten in days. She did a good job with French fries, too. She was neither thin nor fat. She looks more like a farmer who is fed corn. Around this time, Nadine and Roger came in. Rayburn introduced them to each other. "Oh shit, I'm sorry," Wanda said. "I thought you were traveling alone." "He's alone now," Nadine said, beckoning to the waitress. "Rayburn, I'm going back with Roger if you don't mind." "Actually, I'm going to go back with him." She thought it was funny. Roger just smiled. Thus ends another chapter in the life of Rayburn Waitley. Nadine and Roger did not return to West Virginia for another 3 weeks. Osmond spent 4 weeks in a hospital in Rapid City. His Harley disappeared while he was there. No one else heard from Jolene. The relationship between Wanda and Rayburn improved during their trip home and escalated dramatically when they passed through Indiana and Wanda found out about his last name. Rayburn Waitley was and remains a name to be reckoned with in Virginia. Greta teaches Wanda how to cook oatmeal porridge. End.